07 and had compiled a tidy amount of points, but Motorite was sitting pretty with first and third nicely covered. But eventually it was time for the talking to stop and the racing to start. And first off on the 50k prologue, it was Toyota's De Bruyn who sprinted away from the line at Race HQ at Game City outside Gaborone. Varayawa and his co-pilot Siegfried Rousseau were also impressive early on and were setting up the fastest intermediate times for the specials in their total porter. But even early on, it was clear that dust would be a severe problem for the teams. Nissan Navara driver Krobler and his trusty co-driver Francois Jordan were also out of the blocks quickly and were in a hurry to place as high up as possible and avoid all the dirt. They made their point while the other Atlas Copco team, Gary Bertelt and Henry Costain, made theirs. They were very impressive after a quiet start to the season. Spat with its Audi engine that surprised by going third fastest early on. While the Harpers in second in the championship, just 4 points behind, had to find the balance between conservation and speed early on. They've had a very consistent season and the move to the Atlas Copco team has shown that they certainly have the talent to become national champions. The reigning Class D champion Manfred Schroeder and his partner Ward Huxtable and their Barlow World Absolute Ford love the longer distances and certainly know how to nurse a car along. Reigning Space Frame champion Alfie Cox has won the desert race in a production car and on two wheels but never in a special. Thus he was looking for a trifecta in 2007. Meanwhile, Cronier and Birkin were driving themselves into fourth fastest in the production prologue lineup, which meant a heck of a lot less dust than further back. While Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were just a further 40 seconds behind them in another Castrol Toyota Hilux. In 11th overall and 6th in class, it was Nardis Alberts and Colin Hunter in their fire engine red wraps up back who clocked exactly 40 minutes and 40 seconds for the 50 kilometers. For Naim Mosaji and Rayon Bodjana in the second Total Motorsport Gymco, there was, shall we say, a thorny issue or two to sort out. Okay, you drove into them. You take them out. No, you pointed this way. Okay, ask the marshal. Thanks, pal. Herman Silwald and Paul Helberg went at it hammer and tongs and took 8th in class with a quick prologue drive. In 14th place overall, but just 96 seconds off the pace, Bevan Bertelt and his nav Robin Houghton took their Toyota Hilux through its paces. They needed a good finish. Let's now drop in on former national champs Duncan Foss and his new co-driver Richard Leek and their proudly South African Nissan Navara.
Right, next to fence, but not extreme right. So slight right. That one. 300 cows. Good. Okay, 200, turn 90 left before fence. 90 left before fence. Can't be done. Look for it, 100. 90 left before fence. Yeah, there. Yeah, got it. There we are.
Close call. For Ford Ranger driver Brandon Harkis and John Moore, there was a solid, if unspectacular, start in 8th place in the SP class. While their teammates Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer and the other Ford Ranger were a further 8 seconds back, plagued by starter motor and alternator problems. The Norwegian Tollefson, who is a mountaineer in his spare time, piloted his Nissan Navara and his nav Quinn Evanston 19th overall, but was clearly taking it relatively easy. The 4th Ford Ranger with Kobus van Tonda and Rian Guapa aboard also caught the eye with their first full drive out, and they took 11th in the SP class in 42 minutes and 4 seconds. In Class S, there's been a season-long battle, and one of the protagonists, another former desert winner Richard Schilling, and his stand-in nav Mick Westhuizen, nailed their colours to the mast, leading the prologue by 3 minutes. 3 wins out of 3 gave the newcomers of the year 2006 the Cries a clear lead in Class B, and the Regent Racing pair had a healthy 20-point lead over their nearest championship rivals, the Besaidnots, Johan and Etienne, and their Denko Bat. They were just 31 seconds behind the Cries and chasing hard. With Walter du Plessis and his Sandmaster Maxi Mag in 3rd place in turn, just 19 seconds behind the Besaidnots. For former SA champion Evan Hutchison and Akim Bergman, a troublesome fan belt and a fuel starvation problem cost them 5 minutes and left them eating dust the rest of the way. But in Class E, Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in their Barbaspan Toyota Hilux were trying to maintain a 30-second advantage over the Barkhuizens. While the Weichelts, Cliff and Louis were sandwiched in the middle in Class D. And they were being chased by Malcolm Koch and Wayne Brink in their Castrol Toyota, just 3 seconds behind in class. And the Barkhuizens chasing for all they were worth in the Rokon Toyota Hilux in Class E. With 950 k's still to go, the battle lines had been drawn in the sand and the De Bruins were standing at the top end of it. However, only 63 seconds covered the top 10, indicating that the competitiveness was not at all lacking. And in the specials, it was ditto, with Matthews and Smith surprising all and sundry and delighting their sponsors with a fine 3rd place, just 8 ticks off the pace. The Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race continues.
Vehicle and asset.